Welcome to the Hiding in Plain Sight podcast, where we explore the transformative power of inclusivity and the strength found in vulnerability. I'm your host, Lindsey Mazza, and with each episode, together we will go on a journey of reconnecting with all parts of ourselves to foster healing and inspire a more inclusive and compassionate world for all. So grab your headphones and settle in for soul-fulfilling discussions that will make you laugh, provoke thought, and be the catalyst for growth. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hiding in Plain Sight podcast. Today, I wanted to hop on and do a solo episode about grief. Because grief is something that I've dealt with more recently in my life, I believe that I've gone through this process in order to be able to help other people. And I get a lot of questions from people about how to connect with your departed loved one. What are some tools in order to assist you with your grief? And I want to go over those today with the hopes that this can reach people and help them in whatever challenges they're dealing with in their life. So today we're going to really talk about grief and how to move through it with the help of your departed loved one. So what does that mean? Well, I would like to start by acknowledging that grief is something that, while it is so relatable to us all, it is something that connects us all. It is also something that impacts everybody differently. It's depending on who you've lost in your life, at what point you've lost that person in your life, how it impacts you moving forward from that loss is totally unique to you and your situation. But just because these experiences are different for all of us doesn't mean that there's some commonalities in this process that can all connect us and we can all help each other through it. So I've talked about this a lot and about how the passing of my father in October of 2023 was so critical for me and the development of this new chapter in my life. And it was an earth-shattering experience, as the loss of a parent is for most people. But it was also a catalyst for change for me. And it was an opportunity for me to develop a new relationship with my dad. And I think that the loss of whoever you've lost in your life is an opportunity for you to develop a new relationship with them. So to start, I want to talk about my belief system around what happens when people depart. So I believe unequivocally that your loved one never leaves you. They've left their body on this earth, but their spirit and their energy remains with you at all times. They don't want to leave their loved ones. They understand that you are going through this grieving process. They also understand that you're looking for continued guidance and interaction with them. And they want to be able to send you signs that they are around. And I think, I've seen the evidence firsthand that our loved ones remain with us. When I lost my dad, I started to receive such undeniable signs from him. And I was a believer in being able to communicate with people who've passed on. I believe that we get guidance from our spirit guides. I believe that we have guardian angels around us. I believe in a power greater than us, whether you want to call it God, universe, spirit, whatever that looks like for you. I believe that to my core, that it exists. And for people who are on the fence or tend to fall in the category of, I'm not really a believer, and you're closed off to it. I mean, for starters, I'm not really here to convince anybody, but what I would say is that ask yourself this question. If I were to open myself up to the possibility that there is existence beyond the human form, how could that possibly negatively affect your life? The answer is really, I'm going to tell you the answer is it can't negatively impact your life. In fact, there's really only benefit from it. So I think open-mindedness is such an important part of our life's process, and the possibility of being able to tap into a support system that is not visible to us really creates additional comfort in our life and additional support. So I think that's a really cool possibility, and it would be great if most people could open themselves up to that. So in terms of what that looked like for me, I always believed in that existence beyond human form, like I said, and I was always able to intuitively know things. I had a pretty strong intuition, and I would apply it in my life for my day-to-day, in business, in personal relationships. And that's a trial and error process for all of us, right? We get these intuition hits, we get these gut instincts, we choose to ignore them sometimes, we choose to listen to them others. And when there was a lead up to the passing of my dad, we knew that things were not looking good. We knew that he was declining, and he had such a couple of years decline. And through that process, I really delved into the spiritual path, because my involvement in Reiki, my ability to call in energetic healing, helped my dad. He knew he was declining. And I think when people are close to the end of their life, although he was also always a believer, it really strengthened my relationship with him towards the end, but also strengthened the level of peace that he could call into his life, accepting that this was where he was at in his journey. And once he had passed, I immediately started to be able to hear him. I developed these auditory skills, and it was so undeniable for me. I would hear my dad tell me where things were that we couldn't find in the house. I would ask him, and I would hear it in his voice. I would hear it in his tone. I knew it was him. And every time I'd ask for guidance, I would get it from him. I would go to retrieve those items based on where he would tell me they were. I would ask for very specific signs from him to let us know that he was around. And the more I leaned into that, the more present it became. And it became more present for me and my family. And that was the start of the development of my new relationship with him. And I want to go into that further, but something that people ask me is, how does it make you feel that you're able to communicate with your dad? And I think, it's taken me a while to push back all of those emotions of, on the one hand, it's sad because of course it is. But on the other hand, it's a very powerful relationship that I've developed with him. And how I feel is I truly feel like I am never alone. And I think that everybody can lean into that. So if you're sitting here thinking, okay, so I've lost a loved one and I don't hear from them, or I don't receive signs, and you want to know how, I think we need to start the conversation with talking about grieving and what that looks like. And like I said earlier, grieving is a unique process to every individual. But I believe that grieving and living in the loss are two different things. The reality is we all grieve. When we lose someone, we go through the gamut of emotions. We feel anger, we feel despair, we struggle to accept the loss because our brains haven't caught up to the reality. all of those things are human experiences, and we all experience them. But when you learn to grieve properly, you are able to understand that those emotions are part of the process. You are able to feel those emotions instead of repressing them. And that allows you to move through them. And when I say people end up living in the loss, what I mean by that is we get stuck. So that means we are really leaning into certain emotions. We are focusing on the fact that they are gone from this physical life. And when you get stuck in the loss, you energetically block off the connection with your loved one on the other side. So they are trying to send you signs. They are trying to let you know that they are around, but they are unable to communicate with you because you're so stuck in the loss. And it's really interesting because we're living in this, something that I've observed in this post-COVID world is everybody has experienced much more loss, I think, than we have historically. And we do not have a society that is equipped to support us through the proper grieving process. And I think that it's the inability to support that also keeps us stuck. And what I mean by that is so someone we love dies, right? And we've got this fixed bereavement period through our employment. So you're expected to deal with it in a few days because we have this unforgiving, fast-paced society. So we know that we've suffered this loss, but now we know that we have to reintegrate back into life. So we're focused on how to get to the other side of it and how to do that as quickly as possible, which doesn't actually allow us or support us to move through all of those emotions. So we do the things that people tell us to do. We Google the stages of grief to check in to make sure we're ticking those boxes. Okay, that's anger that I feel. That is denial that I feel. I'm in that stage of negotiating, right? There's that stage of like, okay, I'm trying to get my brain to catch up. And we do the grief counseling. And we're doing all of these things to move through it as fast as possible. And we hear people say, time is the thing that heals. But it actually doesn't, because I know people who have lost loved ones several years ago, and they became stuck. That loss was a point in their life where they became stuck. And it's because they were unable to move through those emotions. And they did the things that society told them to do. But what they didn't do is they didn't feel the feelings. They didn't sit with those feelings. They tried to just keep going, right? With the distractions. And that's what we all do. And after this initial period of loss, okay, we sign up for grief counseling, we're Googling the stages, I'm validating myself through the counseling and Google searches that I'm where I'm supposed to be. And then we're simply expected to go back to the life that we had before the loss. And that's just not possible, right? It's not possible. So we're carrying these emotions that we haven't been able to deal with, and we're back in our busy day to day. And what I've observed from people in my life and through helping people is that we expect to just go back to being that version of ourselves before the loss. And that's just not possible, right? It's not possible. This loss has now forever changed us. And it's about getting to know ourselves post-loss, because it should change us, right? Loss should be an opportunity for growth. And I say that with the greatest sensitivity for how difficult loss is. I get it. I've been there. But what I want to focus on is how you can gain help from the person that's departed during this process. because when you're living in the loss, you are not accessing that assistance. And the day that that person departs this earth is the first day in you being able to develop your new relationship with them. And learning how to do that is so powerful. So what are some things that I did? So like I said, I started to hear my dad, and not everybody's going to have that experience. Not everybody has the same intuitive skills. But what I can tell you is my mom and brother didn't hear my dad. That is not how he came to them, but he certainly sent signs, and we began this new relationship with him. We began by asking for signs. So something that I would do is I would have a conversation with my dad, and while I could hear him, I would still ask him to show up in different ways. So something I would ask him to do is send me blue butterflies. And when I was trying to make big decisions after I lost him, I would ask him to send me the sign in the form of a blue butterfly. And sure enough, it would come through every single time, and in the craziest of ways. And when I say ask for a sign, I'm saying, don't ask for it out loud with your phone around, because of course our phones listen to us and it messes with the algorithms on social media. So ask for it quietly. Have that conversation with that loved one, and I guarantee you will get a sign. Ask for the thing that is without question them sending it to you. For my mom would, their song would start playing in the most random places. So, there were two songs in particular that we connect to my dad. And one is Simply the Best by Tina Turner. And the other one is Nothing's Gonna Stop Us by Starship. And both of those songs we played at his funeral. We did his funeral our way, in an unconventional way. And those songs meant something to us with him. And when I say, like, I rarely heard those songs, they would start playing in the most random places. So, and the third song, that we played at the funeral was Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way. And these songs would come up in the most random places that were undeniable. So I'll give you an example. I was on a trip in May of this year, and I had a really tough time on this trip. And I was really feeling the loss and was really in my feelings, and I was feeling alone. And on our, like, deep in my thoughts, all the tears about me, on our way, we left to go, and I was with people who were not family. And we got in the car to start driving to dinner. And when we got in the car, all of a sudden, an acoustic version of Simply the Best starts playing. And, you're sitting there thinking, okay, well, that's a coincidence. Sure. But then we drive for 10 minutes and like I say, like, I'm not in a good place during this time. Then we go to walk in to the restaurant, and there's a man playing a violin. And the minute I walk into the restaurant, he starts playing on his violin Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way. And I don't know how that could possibly be deniable. And I knew in that moment that was his way of saying, you're not alone. I'm here. And I started ugly crying in the restaurant. I was like, okay, Dad, I hear you. But man, can you send me these signs in a more private setting? But I knew that was his way of telling me that he was here, because like I said, when you're living in the loss and stuck in the grief, it is hard for you to hear from your loved one because they're not able to access you. So even me, who was used to hearing from my dad, and in that moment, I was having such a tough time that I wasn't able to hear him. So he sent me those signs. For my mom will get in the car and Simply the Best will start playing, and then she'll drive to the store, walk in the store, and then all of a sudden, Nothing's going to Stop Us. And, he very clearly sends those signs to all of us. And I'm telling you, your loved one will do the same thing. And that is such a source of comfort. And you can start by asking, small signs for not necessarily big life decisions, but it's absolutely such a sense of comfort. And you should start doing it today. And if you don't get the sign right away, that doesn't mean that it's not coming. But the relationship that you're building with your loved one, it's a two-way relationship, right? I'm telling you unequivocally that they are around you, but you really just need to start speaking to them. When you're in thought or prayer or meditation, have that conversation, check in with them, and you will start to strengthen that relationship. The other thing that I have learned through this process is that you hear how when you're trying to shift your life, you need to surrender to the plan of the universe or God or spirit, whoever you believe in, right? You need to surrender and let them show you the way. And surrendering is something that is so hard for all of us because we want to, when you're living in this world of I've climbed my way to the top and I've built my life by controlling things, by controlling the people I do business with, wearing 100 hats in this business that I run, we are not used to surrendering, right? We are not used to kind of taking our hands off the wheel and being guided by the universe. And it is only in surrendering where you will be guided in the direction that you need to be guided in, because you're not interfering with the plan that is trying to be laid out for you. So what I will say also about loss is loss puts you in a place of surrendering without your consent, right? You aren't asking for it, but it hits you so deeply that you have no other option. So it's a rock bottom moment, and it's in those rock bottom moments where you have to throw your hands up and say, I need help. I'm surrendering. Show me the way. And that's what surrendering feels like. You have no other option. You know you need the help. And that's an opportunity for change, right? That is the catalyst for change. So that's another way that your loved one can come in and help you. And I think that I want to be clear that I'm not at all being insensitive to how difficult it is to lose somebody, but I just wanted to show a different side of it. I wanted to offer a reframe because I have been there from personal experience, and I have watched others in my life be in that really dark place. And when I look at how my journey has been different from other people's, the difference is I didn't live in the loss. I felt the feelings, and I had my low days. Don't get me wrong. I still do. I still have days where I'm like, man, I miss you, Dad. And I know that he's around me, but of course I wish I could just give him a hug. And we're all going to continue to have those days. But the new relationship that I have built with him is so special, and it's so strong, and it's a relationship that I could not have had with him in human form. I was always close to my dad, but he has been able to help me move into a new chapter through this spiritual connection in a way that he never would have been able to while he was here. And while the loss was so gut-wrenching for me, at the same time, it launched me onto this new path that I will forever be grateful for. So loss is an opportunity to gain something, and that is exactly what our loved ones want for us. So I really just wanted to encourage everybody to delve deeper into that and developing that new relationship. And I am happy to answer questions on tools and how-tos. If you want to DM me on Instagram or email me, I think the best way to help other people is to speak from our lived experiences, and that's how we can all rise up together. And yes, please get in touch with me. I'm very passionate about this because it has changed my life. And the other thing that I've noticed on this journey is even people who were once closed off to this possibility, once you suffer a loss, it kicks open that door of curiosity and possibility, because you want to know that there's a continued connection. And I just think it's so beautiful and it's so special. And how amazing is it that we get to continue to live in this human form, knowing that there's a team of people in the form of departed loved ones around us, cheering us on and supporting us in all the ways that we need to be supported. So I will leave it at that. Please get in touch with me. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Hiding in Plain Sight. I want to be doing more solo episodes to answer questions on specific topics. I think, my next solo episode is going to be on talking about boundaries, because that's come up a lot for me with other people. So get in touch. And until next time, I hope you all explore the possibility of getting in touch with those that you cannot see, because they're just waiting to hear from you. Thank you for joining me on the Hiding in Plain Sight podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. Feedback and episode ideas helps us reach more listeners. I would love to connect with you further. You can visit my website at lindseymazza.com and add me on Instagram at Lindsey D. Mazza. Until next time, keep sharing your stories and vulnerabilities, because one story at a time connects us all.